My mother, when describing um, me after my arrest to psychiatric authorities, said that as a child, I would go out on the roof when I was told not to. Actually, I was told to by the Wattenmaker brothers. They took me out on the roof. I don't know how she knew that. Maybe I walked out onto the roof of Forbes when we lived on Forbes once. 5717 Forbes. That might have been when she told me not to. I could be wrong about that. But she said that drugs were everywhere in those days, and the CCAC people intoned something about provincial norms. And I think the idea was to smother everything that happened in the idea that it was the counterculture's wrongheadedness, and that in solidarity with the counterculture, um, I should get on the bus with the ringleaders of the attack who were back in the USSR or something like this. And that's how they explained, you know, Casper may have tortured you or bullied you, was the word they used. But he is your brother. Man is man. I mean, it's a Gestapo tactic of psychological abuse. We'll torture you again if you try to resist us. And it's not just idle irony that the letters clarify that the people who tortured me and poisoned me and led me on to the nightmare, the Manson ordeal that I went through in Guerrilla Theater District, were Attica State Prison psychiatrists. They were the ringleaders. They were the controllers. They were behind the mafia. Bernard Wattenmaker is known to have done that. Karsh brought marijuana over to the house. He was years older than me. And he asked me if I wanted to try it. Karsh, doesn't that sound like a guerrilla theater operation? Because then they kidnap me and stolen cars and say, shh. And my mother's letter says, I believe he was traumatized by things like stolen cars. Well, I was hiding in the towel closet so they couldn't find me. The Shirelles also suffered fear when that gang screamed down Winterton Street in a car that was probably stolen and nearly hit the Shirelle girl. I remember when these men who were terrorizing put their hands in another student's pockets and robbed him. And he said it was me just because I was there. I went over to the house and I explained this man had been terrorizing me. And they answered by driving by me in a car, throwing a beer at me, saying, "Keep your hands out of my brother's pockets." And I shouted back, "It was not me." Well, the truth is, when I look back on it, the woman who I went to talk to seemed gleefully aware that I was falsely accused. That's Pittsburgh provincial norm, evidently. This is the psychosis of jumping to corruption or something at its root. So you're probably waiting for me to disavow the deaths of the two people who I believe led to an auto accident. I see no reason to reform my view that Mackenzie Shirelle was herself being abused by the men who were complicit in the reckless circumstances, that it wasn't premeditated, that it was an impulsive act, that it was escape behavior. That's the way I see it. Part of it is based on my experience. And they want the ghost happy people say if you empathize with anybody in the world, you will suffer a penalty. That's what they're setting up. That's the mind reader element. If you sympathize with someone who appears by all purposes of the media to be sincerely unsure why what happened happened. And certainly there's no sign of conscientious intent to kill those men. Then you will suffer the penalty. That's why they invented the phrase "bring it on," I guess, you know. I mean, you do know where I live. I mean, if you want to hear it straight from my, I see nothing in the evidence to suggest the conclusion that was reached. Now, there's a question, is that the paradigm you're supposed to arrive at? Oh, the Spinner meanings for Thorles and Putin have derived the supernatural continuer of Harry Truman and the queer ball, because I expressed the rationality of the decision that was made in World War II. Yeah, I could explain again if you want me to. We had been attacked, we were losing large numbers of people, and the stories we were getting about the crematoriums from Germany were outrageous. And we just wanted to bring it to a stop. And so we did what happened. And we learned afterwards the magnitude of what we had done. I say we because it's true that it probably saved my father's life, or at least it's clear that I knew early because of his involvement. He told me about it. But he didn't drop the bomb. I have no idea whether he would have under orders or whether he would have said, I'd rather not. I don't know. But the logic of the imposter group is to say, we see no evidence for the rationality of it. And the spirit world wants a sacrifice. When I came home from the Winemakers, I kid you not, we had moved to Squirrel Hill, and I went up into my room at 5556 Bartlett. And I sat down and I had what they call in Gurdjieff society a being mentation. Give us one sacrifice. Give us one small child. Give us one sacrifice. Give us one small child. Well, don't do that. Don't go Swami Rami conveyance. Don't touch her. Don't hurt any more children. You don't need to do that. So what's going on? What's really going on with this stuff? Expect me to guess? I don't own weapons. I haven't hurt anybody. It's extremely strange behavior. They put out back in USSR and gunned us with LSD and drugs and hair and stuff. And the attorney who's pulling this cripe is an attorney for hair. Her name's Amanda Harcourt. She's an attorney for Gweiner. She's been yapping at my heels for 50 years. I was about 11 when I saw her. The mayor didn't want children to go. What did they do? Penny took me to see her and over the objections of the Mayor Flaherty. She voiced awareness that the men told me that the mayor didn't want us to go. And then she has the gall to put together Mount Desert Island and dump down hold LGBT the main. See, Was she working for Flaherty? Did they want to set me up? She was from 1717 Murder Doctor Street, around the corner from Cyril Wecht, who comes up with these grave secret stories. You're dealing with the banging, clanging gong of absurd theater. Because the most absurd thing that anybody ever came up with was the idea that I was out to have fun using drugs. They were always those people from the law school who were coming around with the drugs. You can trace all of the drugs to the Pitt Law School, to the FEMA agency at the University of Pittsburgh, all of them. My mother used to call me a picky eater because I didn't like carbonated beverages. I didn't like pizza. I wasn't one of those kids who wanted to gorge myself on Coke and pizza. They were too strong for me. And these mothers had me on inhalants while these throttling nerve agents is going in a locked garage. And then they say there's nothing wrong with it. It's a provincial norm. Back in USSR, man. You're dealing with guerrilla theater and you're dealing with absurd theater. I have no way. I mean, it doesn't look like a mock-up, the business with, Yoko and Sean coming up to the judge and saying, John Nunn was a holy man and Queerball is a saint. But you could superimpose that on those images.